Well, I've been talking to Dr. Alex Allison while he was here about the teaching situation, but obviously we didn't do a full interview with you about your thing.
I wasn't playing hard to get. It was just life's been a little bit busy at the moment. For both of us.
We both put it off because things are moving and all that sort of thing. But so let's not make it exactly like the other ones because we're in a different studio, got different set up. But at the end of the day, how has your year been? That's a big question to start with.
To be honest with you, Paul, I need to have a day off. And I need to have some time off over Christmas just to process all this and look back. I mean,
that's interesting.
I don't think I've had a day off since March. It's been that intense. Yeah. It's been brutal at times. Just being involved in politics. I mean, everyone's been busy. I'm not saying my experience has been any different, but at the start of the year, if you'd have said to me you'd be involved in all the things that I've been involved with, I just would have laughed in your face. It's been incredibly challenging at times. It's been very isolating at times. And I think most people would feel that. But actually coming out of it as we did over the summer and now looking forward to a new year, it's incredibly exciting. And I'm very, very grateful to be in the position I'm in.
Do you know what I find fascinating about that? To say the pressure, I mean, it's a very honest answer, which I applaud you for that. But you've been a doctor, which is probably one of the most high-pressured situations that anyone can be under, and you're putting this on a par with that sort of thing. The pressure, or is it a completely different sort of pressure?
It's a different sort of pressure, but back in March, April, when all this hit, I was working to the same sort of intensity and level that I was when I was a junior doctor in my 20s. It was that difficult. I mean, if you look back in those days, we were running out of PPE. We weren't getting supplies that we expected from the UK. We were having to send all our swabs over to the UK and getting results back 3 or 4 days later. We were just setting up a 111 system. The hospital was basically closing its doors and trying to concentrate on COVID. We were finding ventilators, anywhere we could to put them in. We were creating on-island testing for COVID, really from scratch, at a time when the rest of the world was also trying to do it. And I was in the weird position of being asked to be minister at the beginning of March, 3 weeks later, standing up at my first press conference on camera with you there, closing all the schools down, and then literally walking into the National Strategy Group every single morning, having meetings about closing the borders, about setting up testing, about what we would do if we had mass casualties and the hospital was completely overrun. And so we'd be meeting in the morning, then having further meetings and come-in meetings, then trying to get the legislation right and getting things sent through to us in the middle of the night to then discuss the next morning. I mean, some of the civil servants at the Cabinet Office were working even harder. They were doing 14, 16-hour days, trying to get legislation right, so that then it could go before Tynwald, and then we were having emergency Tynwalds, and it was incredibly busy. And on top of that, we were all isolated. We were all dragged away from each other. We couldn't sort of meet physically. I remember driving down to Tynwald one day on a Sunday to do a press conference, and I was pulled over by the police at the hairpin, a policeman with a mask on, asking me where I was going.
Show your ID and everything.
Show my ID. You laugh, but that's the reality we all went through. We're looking back now thinking, God, and driving over the mountain at 40 miles an hour. Yeah. And all these sort of things. It's just been just extraordinary. So I think all of us, I'm hoping we can get some time off at Christmas. One, to just process that and look back and think what we've done as a community, but two, just get a bit of a breather and start looking forward as well, because there will be challenges next year. There will be issues. The threat of coronavirus and an outbreak on the island is still there. We've got to roll out the vaccination program. That will help protect those really vulnerable people. But there will still be challenges. And also we're coming into an election as well next year, on top of everything else, and Brexit, and whatever else happens in the world. So, this year has been fairly extreme.
Let's put your doctor's hat on for a minute. This is interesting. I mean, I wasn't expecting to do this, but you're seeing the ins and outs of what's going on, and the vaccines arrived, and the way the Isle of Man's dealing with it, and these press conferences and all that sort of thing. You must have a very keen interest, because you you're on the inside of this in the sense of you know how these things work. Are they doing it right? I mean, I know you're going to have to be careful what you say here, but I want you to be honest.
Are we doing it right most of the time? The chief minister right at the start of this said we'll get things wrong, and we have got some things wrong. They were right at that time, but in retrospect, you look back on it and you think, oh, we could have done that better. But at the time, when you're having to make decisions literally there and then to protect the people of the Isle of Man, you have to do your best. And then if you get it wrong, you have to then admit it and change it. And some people have criticised the government. You keep on changing your mind. Actually, we're changing it because the science changes. I mean, for instance, right at the start of this, I went to a lecture in Kildare at Noble's Hospital, and the original work coming out of China at the time, back in January, showed that steroids didn't help people with coronavirus. Actually, the more died if they were taking steroids. Then we had a landmark study in the UK that said, actually, if you use the right steroids, the right dose, it saves lives. Over that time period, the mortality rate, if you go into an ITU in England, has dropped by 50%. It's been that big a change, and that's learning all the time. Mistakes have been made, but as long as we can fess up to that and change, I think that's the right way forward.
I'm just thinking that, on day of recording, this is Friday, the vaccine arrived, but it's still sitting in its freezer somewhere, and other places are off running, including Jersey and Guernsey, even though... Mr. Ashford didn't think Guernsey was, but they are, according to the BBC website, anyway, that we looked at. It seems like everyone's playing so safe almost. Is that the right place, or should we now just get on with it?
I mean, it's a very good point. We discussed this in the House of Keys on Friday morning, just in case. I don't know when this is going out. On Friday morning, another sitting at the House of Keys on a Friday, so I'm completely lost track of time now. Are we lagging behind? Are we not keeping up with Guernsey, keeping up with the Joneses? We're doing things at the right pace for us, because what health are very aware of is, you can take 100 people out to do vaccinations, but that's 100 less people that can be at Nobles dealing with the pressures they're under, because even at winter, despite not having coronavirus, you've got everything else going on. You've got people being ill, getting sick, and your business as normal has to go on. We've got the vaccine, but there are issues with that. I mean, we've got the development of quite a complicated brand new vaccine in a record short period of time. It's not treated in terms of any other way that we've done before, in terms of being frozen at -70, being thawed out, and then you have to use it within 6 hours. So if you can imagine, you've got to vaccinate almost 1,000 people within a 6-hour time period and work that out, and that's a challenge. And I think because of the way that the vaccine is being delivered to us, health don't want to waste any of it. They want to make sure it gets to the people who need it. So yes, they are saying, do you know what, we're going to give another couple of days so we can get it absolutely right, because what we don't want to do is rush it out now and waste half that precious vaccine that we've just managed to get onto our island. So people can criticise them, that's democracy for you. Are we making a serious mistake with it? I don't think we are.
What about the situation with the hospital, though? I mean, you obviously, again, been very acutely aware of what's going on up there. That they had to stop more elective surgery. Yes. This can't be good, especially if we don't have anything else going on. What is the solution there, or what do you know?
It is an issue, and there are a whole range of reasons for that. We know that every winter in the UK, there's always a crisis in hospitals. That's even before coronavirus. So winter is always a busier time for hospitals. On top of that, let's accept it. People have been burnt out by what's happened this year, whether they be teachers or doctors or nurses. People need a bit of a break. And unfortunately, some people have gone off sick. Other people have elected to leave the island because they're desperate to be with family. We've talked about teachers before, but it's similar with nurses, similar with social workers, with a couple of doctors I know who've left the island because they had to be somewhere else. And so there have been some problems with recruitment. Similarly, Nobles has always relied upon agency staff coming over. That's a lot harder now. They can't just come backwards and forwards every couple of days. And those agency staff are in really short supply in the UK as they're trying to expand their services to deal with the winter pressures as well. So there's a range of issues there. So I think the decision to stop elective surgery, particularly orthopaedics, was very regrettable. I was there when we made the decision at the Council of Ministers. It was the right decision to make. We will try to get it back up and running as quickly as possible. So
back on track about you, and besides the pressures and the teachers which we dealt with in a separate interview, how are things been faring for you? I mean, you enjoying being the minister and all the responsibility that brings with
people were asking me that at the start. To begin with, no, I wasn't enjoying being minister. It was incredibly difficult, just in terms of, learning how the department worked, learning our relationship with schools, trying to talk with the union leaders. I introduced myself to all of them, and within a week we're in lockdown and we closed the borders. So it was very, very difficult. What we've done over the summer is obviously had the independent review of the department, and then in September I got a chance to start changing the department and changing the way it worked and being part of changing that culture. And that's when I started enjoying it, because I think most people go into politics to achieve change, positive change. And if I can be part of that, that's the enjoyable part of it. It's not doing plaques and kissing babies and going to school fairs. It's actually looking at an education system and sort of saying, when I leave this, am I leaving it in a better place? And I think already we are in a much better place in terms of the education system.
Is it better fit to be the next Minister of Health, if not Chief Minister or whatever, something like that? Would that be where you'd be happier if you need to be happier? Or
No, I've really loved, and I love being in education. I've just spent this afternoon at Ballacameen chatting with a couple of their sixth formers who've got a petition going. It's fantastic, because the education system and the education service on the Isle of Man does shape our society. If it educates the kids, their parents interact with it. We can do so much on our island to create a better future. And then UCM and their role in lifelong learning and some of the stuff that's come on from the pandemic in terms of retraining people and upskilling people. So if the job they were in no longer exists, they can go back to work and do something else. The internships, all that stuff has been incredibly rewarding to be part of.
Okay. Well, we could do a score, I just think this is not exactly the same format, but how do you think you've done?
I've always been, careful 7, I think, so far. I'll give myself an 8 this year, just for getting through it. I've gone a bit grey and I've got a few more wrinkles, but I've managed to get through it. And I'm actually now enjoying it, and I understand some of the nuances and some of the intricacies of both being a minister and part of Comyn and on a completely different side of Parliament.
And how do you rate the government, albeit you're part of it?
I'm going to be biased, aren't I? I think when you look at what we've achieved in a relatively short period of time, I think this government's been exceptional. I think that the people making decisions have made the right ones at the right time, and then been humble enough to apologise and change when they've needed to. So I do not think we could have done overall. We could have done better than we have.
But we're definitely. It happens at all administrations. That last fling, almost the wheels seem to be coming off in some degrees.
Yeah, and one, I suppose one of the big regrets is, for instance, when I became minister at the beginning of March, I was instantly taken off the WhatsApp group of all the backbenchers. It just went, well, why wouldn't you?
You're now in the tent.
I'm the other side.
Yes.
Okay, so and it took me a while to get used to that. Hang on a minute. I want to send you messages about ministers. No, you are a minister now. You'll show it to them. So I thought, okay, go. There's that separation, and my regret is that particularly when we started out, we were having to make all those decisions really, really early. We perhaps didn't take along the whole Tynwald, the whole Parliament with us. That's not just us. I mean, the same in England, the same around the world. If we had to do it again, we'd have had far more regular briefings for backbenchers. We'd have tried to get everyone together, a proper team Tynwald. I know it's a cliche.
No.
But at the time, we were literally so bloody busy making those decisions that sometimes communicating those to other people had to take a second place. The press conferences were useful, and they've evolved, and we will eventually get to having you back in the same room.
You have to bring that up.
It's true.
It just sets me off.
I know it's true. We will eventually get people back in a proper press conference.
It is ridiculous.
We will eventually get
this
that.
This is terrible.
But again, we have to learn, so that if we're and I hope we can bank some of these things for the future. So I hope we can actually, as we go forward, we can whatever the issue is, whether it's Brexit, whether it's coronavirus, whether it's the economy, you know, with the budget. Let's get everyone around the table. Let's explain the situation we're in. Let's be honest with people, give them as much information as we can, let them ask all the questions, keep that communication going.
You see, what I'm getting from you, and I'm going to be something I shouldn't really be doing, is congratulating you, because you do an interview with me and you talk absolutely from the heart. That's how it comes to me. I think to the audience as well. And that's something that most politicians, once they get inside that tent, sort of don't do quite as much, because they've got to play the party game that thing. Do you ever feel you're being pulled in a way you don't want to be pulled sometimes? Or, you know?
Yeah. Michelle Obama, in one of her interviews, she was talking about when you're in a position of power in government, it doesn't change you, it reveals things about you. I'm not sure whether she's right, because I do think I've changed this year in some ways that I still don't quite understand. But it does.
See a doctor about that, you know?
Yeah. Well, I need to heal myself, you know. I need to look after myself. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm lucky that I've got some really supportive friends and family to pull me up every now and again and say, "Oi, no, get away from your emails. Come and eat something." I can only be me, and if I pretend to be somebody else, I have family who'll pull me up on that.
Okay. Well, the big questions then, which I would ask if we're doing it as that sort of yearly interview, is: are you wanting to stand again? Do you see yourself doing it again? Is this the right job? You know, the usual things. I genuinely, I probably do want to stand again, because there's so much stuff that I started out on this road that I still haven't got yet. Whether it's, I think I've achieved some things, but there's still massive things that I'd like to do with the Isle of Man to make it a better place. Whether that's assisted dying, whether that's drug reform, whether it's looking at the way we pay benefits, whether it's boosting the economy. There's so much there we could do. But I need to have a chat with my family and just get a bit of reality check for them and make sure that they think it's the right thing for me and our family. But it's been a real roller coaster ride this year, and I think all of us just need to take stock of that.
Please like and subscribe to the Isle of Man TV channel. Thank you.